Your house is probably filled with 80% of stuff that you're not even using, or if you even forgot that you had it, then that's a really good sign that you can probably live without it and let it go. And a lot of people ask me how to get started on it. Well, you just have to get started. The only way to get through something is to actually go through the thing that you're trying to get breakthrough in, because you have to make room for what's coming next. You have to make room for the next season. You have to make room for the next season in life, is mainly what I'm talking about, not just physical seasons, but the next season in life that God has for you. Most of the time, we're not supposed to take things from our previous season into our future season. God's not, He doesn't want us to just have all of this baggage and all of these things that we carry through and we carry through and we keep bringing and bringing. It ends up being baggage that we're just lugging around in our life and not willing to let go of. And that baggage gets heavier and heavier and heavier because it's like a lint ball that just rolls around and gets bigger and bigger and more messy and more chaotic. So remember, chaos, dysfunction, disorder, unclarity, that, not having clarity, unfinished business, unfinished projects, leftover things. If you have a bunch of half used, that's a behavioral pattern when you have half used of everything. Half of everything, and then you open something new. You started something and got halfway through and never finished. You got halfway through a book and then you started another book. You've got half unfinished business. You never completed. It's like running a race and then giving up halfway through and starting another race and another race. And that, when you look at that pattern, which is what it is, it's a behavioral pattern. Why are you doing that? Why can't you complete the one thing? So when you complete something and you finish something, and I'm not talking about having a huge plate of food and you have to complete it, and otherwise you feel like you failed. You could also be extreme on the opposite. But what I'm talking about is finishing what you started. And God talks a lot about that, finishing the race that's laid out for you, that's in front of you. So if you keep stopping in the middle and starting something new, or never completing the one thing, or you're doing 10 things at one time. Sometimes people think multitasking is like this great thing, and though it can be in certain circumstances, sometimes multitasking, you don't do anything well because you're doing too many things halfway. And it's better to go focused intensity on one big task at a time. You're trying to close a deal, you're not going to try to close 10 deals at one time. You've got them in kind of a pipeline, if you will. So there's one major one, and then they kind of go down the pipeline. Or you're trying to complete one big goal or one big task. If you have 3 or 4 big goals or big tasks, chances are you're not going to complete them in the time that you want. It's going to take a lot longer. You're going to be more frustrated because you're putting that effort into each one, and it ends up being like 50% effort in each thing. So focus on the one goal, the one main goal. Work on making room for what's next. So you're building your capacity in life is what you're doing. When you're going to another level, you have to build the character, the integrity, the perseverance to have what it takes to get what you want on that level. So you can't just all of a sudden like lift a bunch of weights. You build yourself up to the level that you want to be. If you're not making a lot of money and you want to make more money, you have to become the person who makes more money. What does that person do? How do they live? Because your habits, the answer's in your habits. The behavior is the language. The habits and the behavior is the language. So when you learn to maximize and leverage and position yourself, that's a whole nother ballgame than hustling and grinding and working harder. Because grinding, working harder can sometimes just lead you to toiling. But when you are actually positioning yourself and being strategic, it's much like a chess game. You're being strategic to win. There's moves and then there's the thought between the moves. But you're focused on that one thing. You're not doing 10 chess games at one time trying to win all 10. You're just focused on that one. So this is why it's so important to clear the clutter, not just the physical clutter, but the mental clutter, to clear the unnecessary things that you're holding on to that you think, I need this. I can't ever let this go. We have to get to the point where you're not relying on all of these false senses of security. You're relying on God, and you're relying on your your movements and what you're able and capable of doing. So when you blend those two things, basically you become partners with God, because you are then becoming congruent. You are becoming aligned with what God wants for you to do. You're walking the walk. You're doing the thing. You're going through it. And you're allowing him to transform you as you go through whatever it is that he wants you to go through. And you'll know what's the one thing you keep avoiding, what's the one thing you keep turning away from, what's the one thing you can't face. A really big thing is discussions in marriage. A lot of times the husband doesn't complete, he walks off, or he gets mad, or he gets defensive, or he's not willing to find a resolution, or really allow the wife to feel heard. What is she actually saying underneath that tone that he gets so mad about? Why does she have that tone? Could it be something that I keep doing over and over? I mean, this is a common thing in marriage. The husband's like, your tone. And she's like, are you an idiot? You have no idea why I'm talking the way that I'm talking, is because you keep doing the same things over and over. And what happens is, if you can't get through the discussion for an understanding or a resolution, what happens is you have all these half unfinished business. It's literally a life of unfinished business, um, unfinished businesses, unfinished conversations. Nothing's completed. It's like, are you gonna, if you're coloring a coloring book, do you turn the page before one page is finished and start a new one? Why is that? Why are you not completing the one thing before you move on to the next thing? Now, maybe you were bored, maybe you messed up, maybe you just need a fresh start. Those are all different things in life. Sometimes we just need a fresh start, and we need to, like, get rid of everything and start fresh, instead of, finishing that race that was going in the wrong direction. Because you could be working on a race that's going in the totally wrong direction, and it doesn't make sense to finish that race because it's going to bring you off a cliff. So it's going in the right direction and completing the task so you receive that breakthrough. Another great example would be, you're trying to pay off debt. Instead of trying to pay all the debt off all at once, you list your debts smallest to largest. This is Dave Ramsey's baby steps, and it works because it builds momentum, and you start feeling, you get those wins. He calls it a feedback loop. So you get those wins. You paid off the smallest one, and then you paid off the next one. So you're paying off one, and then you're making minimum payments on the other ones. You're not making minimum payments on all of them. You're going all in like a gazelle on one. So let's say, for example, you've got a credit card that's $500, and the minimum payment's $30 a month. Okay, you're going to pay, and maybe you've got 4 more credit cards. So you're going to say, what do I need to do to pay off that $500 as quickly as possible? How can I increase that $30 a month to $200 or whatever? How could I pay it all off? You're going to sell what you can sell. You're going to take odds and end jobs to get it done. This is the focused intensity. You're going to return what you can return. You're going to recoup what you can recoup, and you're going to put it towards that debt. When that one's done, now you have an extra $30 from that monthly payment that goes on to the next credit card. Now you can do the same thing, and you just keep doing that until you knock it all out. Sometimes it takes a while, because it could be a massive amount of debt with high interest. But the goal is to just get started and start working on that one goal, instead of stretching yourself to try to do 10 different things at one time. When you have that focused intensity, you're at the end of that, when you paid off all that, or whatever the goal was, now you're making room for what's next. You just built your capacity. You just leveled up. That's basically leveling up in life. You literally leveled up from a person who borrows all the time to a person who says, I'm going to pay cash. Or if you still borrow, you do it intentionally and not mindlessly at 30% interest, having 15 credit cards. So you're switching your self-image from someone who once was the bottom, the slave to the lender, and now you're somebody who says, that's not part of my identity, I don't do that anymore. It's much also like eating different. The old you might have ate out to eat all the time, and you're like, well, this is me. Once you stop doing that and you starve that person of that identity of not giving into those fast food cravings, because mostly that's what it is. It's cravings. It's the additives and the addiction in the fast food, and it's convenient. But when you start looking at it, then you look at how many calories did I just eat? This is why the Bible says the truth sets you free. Because if you're not looking at that 5,000 calorie lunch with your Starbucks for that day, you just consumed a whole week's of calories in one day. And you probably spent 30, 40 bucks a day eating out. You're bankrupting yourself, and you're starving your body of the nutrients that it needs. And if you don't look at that, if you don't look at how many calories are in the sauces, if you don't turn the boxes around at the grocery store and you just mindlessly buy your kids snacks and you wonder why they have behavioral issues when you're feeding them food dyes, all these toxic chemicals, they can't sleep, they're having nightmares, they're developing gut issues and skin issues, hormonal issues and behavioral issues. You have to look at the truth. What is it that you're putting in their body? Not all the time is that. Could be, mental things happening there, but I would say close to 90% of the time, it's what you're putting in their body. And I noticed that with my son early on. When he ate certain things, and I started catching it, he ate something with red food dye, he would get weird and crazy and throw fits, and he couldn't focus, and he would cry when he was like 4 years old. And I'm like, man. And I started noticing it was like in the little fruit snacks that I thought, oh, these are good fruit snacks. I'd buy the Mott's fruit snacks from Costco in the big box. But it's in those things, when you start looking at the truth, you find your answer. And then you find freedom, because you realize I'm doing most of these things to myself and to my family. When you stop that behavior and you stop eating out, you start seeing things for what it actually is. And man, it's such a great place to be. And part of it, you'll probably feel guilty because you're like, I can't believe I ate that crap for 10 years. But here's what happens is, and I'll give you an example. We used to go to Trader Joe's all the time, and because it was convenient. It was right around the corner. I liked the small town feel shopping, until I started realizing, man, all of their stuff has soy and seed oils. Not all of it, but most of it. Then I started realizing a lot of their vegetables aren't organic. Most of their stuff is not that great. It's not good. And so we slowly stopped going. My husband's always way late to get on board with any of these changes. I mean, it could take a year, and we're battling out for that year until he finally realizes it. I'm checking to see if he's listening to me, But just the other day, he goes to Trader Joe's, and he comes back with pancake mix. Now, my daughter makes homemade pancakes from scratch all the time, so we haven't had to buy pancake mix in a really long time. She knows the ingredients. She knows she knows exactly how to make it. It's very simple, and it's clean, because you're using organic, unbleached flour or whatever, and you're using aluminum-free, baking soda or whatever she puts in it. She loves baking, so she does that. So he buys 2 boxes of Trader Joe's pancake mix and brings them home, puts them in the cabinet, and I'm like, number one, why are you buying this? We don't buy this anymore. We haven't bought it in a long time. She makes our own pancake mix, and then I'm like, did you look at the back? Turn it around. So I start reading off the ingredients to the kids. And they're like, well, what is it? And actually, they asked me, is this good? Should we make that? Should we open that box? Or should she make her own, her usual homemade? And I said, well, let's turn around and read it. And of course, it was like unbleached flour, sunflower oil, canola oil, that vegetable oil mix, niacin, riboflavin, mononitrate, whatever, all this stuff. And I said, Sophia, do you make this, and do you use those ingredients in your pancakes? She's like, no, I don't even know what that is. I said, so if you don't know what it is, why would we ingest it? And my son's like, well, they do taste really good, I said, yes, they do. But we can't, this is where you ask yourself, what kind of people are we? Who do we want to be? Do you want to be somebody who eats something because it tastes good, knowing it's not good for you? Because you can't unknow what you just learned. And I told my husband, you need to return them. I put them in a bag and put them by the door, and they're sitting by the door right now. We're not eating this junk. We're not eating this. I'm not gonna make you feel bad about it, but you should know by now we don't eat this stuff. So I would rather take that $10 on those pancake mixes and put it towards debt. So you're mindfully moving things from one area to the next. Yeah, it's just $10. It's only $10. That's like I just read something that $20 a day spent after a year is over like $10,000. If you invested that amount, it would make you like over $1 million in 30 years or something. I mean, it's crazy how the little things always add up to the big things. But if you're not looking, and this is like, you can't be passive. You can't be like, oh, well, it sounds good. It's great. Now, I know when you go out to eat, in restaurants and you have pancakes, they're not telling you all of the exact ingredients in the pancakes. So that's just something that you have to, if it's once a month or once every 2 months, you and your family go out to eat and it's not the greatest ingredients, your body will probably feel it, but it's not going to be so detrimental than if it's a habitual thing. It's the things that are linked to your personality or your identity, I should say. It's the things that you have linked with you and you linked to you. So it's asking yourself, who are we? What type of person do I want to be? Am I a person who opens up a TJ Maxx credit card? Why am I even in TJ Maxx? Ask yourself those things. Is it because I love a great deal? Is it because I enjoy the shopping? Because the habits and the way you think is what brought you into that store. And I used to be that. TJ Maxx, Home Goods. I loved the shopping. I loved the good deals. And then I started realizing I'm returning half of this stuff. I don't really love it. It's the way that they display it. It became fun, but I always end up donating it or selling it. I don't need this high interest credit card. And a lot of the items that they sell are very high in lead. It's insane how many, especially in their like ceramics and dishes and coffee cups, packed with lead. So you have to ask yourself, why am I spending this time going, driving, and returning to these stores? It's because it's part of your identity. It's part of who you are. And so when you change your self-image and you change who you are and what you allow and what you tolerate, things around you start changing. Things in your life start changing. And there is a messy middle in between that. So be prepared for the messy middle. The messy middle is the transition. It's always a place that doesn't look as clear as what you want. You may be trying to lose weight. Your hair might have fallen out. Now you're trying to grow back because your hormones and you were stressed, and it doesn't look that healthy. I went through all of that, and I showed up even when I didn't look great, even when I was still out of shape, even when my hair was stringy and straggly. I'm showing up now in the middle of, not getting things that I would like to get done, hair and skin and nails and facials and stuff like that. But when you show up, you have a opportunity to continue learning, continue growing, and continue developing, because then you can see, wow, how far have I come? And it's going to take time. It could take 6 months, but if you break it up into 90-day chunks, then what will happen is every 90 days you will see some type of progress. If you're intensely focused in that one area, you'll see progress in that one area.